We would like to inform all board member attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion, and we will attempt to rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and a roll call.
Mrs. Barber.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Mr. Lawler.
Here.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Here.
Mrs. Pavlak. Okay.
Here.
Mr. Rivas.
Here.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
And Mrs. Junk is absent tonight.
Okay, so with 6 members present, we do have a quorum. Would anyone like to move something from consent to new business? Okay, see none, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda. It has been amended to add 1 item to I-14. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the agenda.
Yes.
Where am I at? All right, I skipped down. Is there just a motion to approve the agenda? I guess we'll say as amended.
So, yes.
Thank you, Gail. And a second.
Second.
All right, and a roll call.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. We'll move on to board and superintendent salutes.
Yeah, fortunately tonight we do have a number of salutes / introductions to share. Typically this first meeting in May, we have our district retirees attend the meeting. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, they were unable to attend. So what we've done instead is Beth put together a wonderful PowerPoint that Tim or Matt will bring up here in a second in the shared slide. It does have a picture of each of the attendees or each of the retirees, how long they've been with our district and their building they last served in. And in lieu of coming to the meeting and either introducing themselves or sharing a note of thanks, we do have 4 of our retirees who did share a note. So as we go through the PowerPoint, when we do, or the slideshow, when we do get to those retirees that shared a note, I will read the note that she shared. So if you would, could you first go ahead and slide to our first retiree? That was fast.
Yeah.
First we have Vern. Vern is currently serving as the assistant director at the Fox Valley Career Center. Vern will again be retiring at the end of this year. So we'd like to publicly recognize Vern and thank him for his 26 years of service to Kaneland and the Fox Valley Career Center. So a huge thank you to Vern. Congratulations and thank you. Sally Belmont, as you can see, Sally is finishing her career as a working at KBK in the early childhood department as a paraprofessional, and we'd like to thank Sally for her dedication to Kaneland and serving our district for 17 years. So congratulations and thank you to Sally. As you can see, Lynn Cesario has served in our district for 26 years, and her most recent role and her last role has been at Kaneland High School in the building principal secretary role. And Lynn did share a note for me to read. So this is from Lynn Cesario. Dear Dr. Layden, it has truly been a pleasure to work at Kaneland High School for the past 26 years with a staff that encompasses the true meaning of what it is to be a knight. I would like to thank everyone for their support and friendship through the years, and I wish all the best to you and to my fellow knights at Kaneland High School and the years to come. So thank you and congratulations to Lynn. Also on this night, just so that you know why we're moving to Lorna, there is a nice clock that each of the retirees receive. Thank you to Dr. Fuchs. over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, and a couple that were in the buildings on Friday cleaning up. We did get all of them their clocks. So hopefully those that were available tonight are logging in. They are sitting somewhere in a comfortable chair with a clock up on their mantle as they see their pictures and are recognized tonight. So hopefully retirees, if you're out there, hopefully you're all joining us. Special thanks to Lorna Coate for her 19 years of service at Kaneland High School. Her last position in our district has been at the library media specialist at the high school. So we'd like to recognize and thank Lorna for her 19 years of service. So thank you, Lorna. Mary Kale, transportation contract route driver, is her last position in our district as she, again, is retiring at the end of this year. So we'd like to recognize and thank Mary for getting all of our students to and from school safely. And thank you for your 21 years. Thank you, Mary, and congratulations. Our next retiree we'd like to recognize is Julie Kolzow. Julie has faithfully and dedicatedly served in Kaneland School District for 20 years. Her recent role that she is in now that she's retiring from is the cross categorical teacher at John Stewart. And Julie did share a note for me to share. So I'm going to go ahead and share that on Julie's behalf. Dear Dr. Layden and members of the Kaneland School Board, what a bittersweet moment this is in my life. What I wouldn't give to be attending this meeting in person, as well as ending my career face-to-face with my students. I want to thank everyone for their part in making my 20 years at Kaneland High School amazing. I've had the best colleagues and administrators at my side every step of the way. I will treasure all the friendships I have made that will last a lifetime and the precious memories that I've made with my students. Dr. Layden, you opened our Institute Day asking everyone to find a special student to try to reach out to and connect with this school year. I had someone in mind the minute you said that, and I have to tell you what amazing connection my student and I formed this year. I believe she helped me as much as I helped her, so thank you for that. The hardest part of retiring under these circumstances is not having any closure. No goodbyes to my students, the staff, etc. I found myself sobbing every day thinking of what I've missing the last few weeks, what we're all missing these last few weeks. Thank you all for giving me 20 incredible years of teaching in Kaneland. I will miss everybody. Thank you, Julie. Our next retiree is works in the district office. She's an assistant to Dr. Atkins in the Human Resources Department. Linda Ross has worked and served our district for the last 20 years. So again, as with all of our other retirees, a special note and thank you to Linda for her dedication and service to Kaneland for the last 20 years. So thank you, Linda, and congratulations. Our next retiree we'd like to recognize is Karen Weigt. Karen has served faithfully in our district for 21 years, and her current role is at John Stewart as a first grade teacher. Actually, I got to see Karen on Friday delivering her clock as she was cleaning out her classroom. I can't imagine an elementary teacher cleaning out a classroom with everything that is in those classrooms. So I'm sure she diligently got those materials out of there. And Karen did share a note, so I would like to go ahead and read that on her behalf. This evening, as we celebrate all of our retirees, I would like to convey just how privileged I feel to have been a member of the Kaneland School District and community. During the past 21 years, I've been lucky enough to work with many dedicated friends, teachers, students, community members, administrators, committee members, and KEA professionals, including those retiring this evening. My first year as a teacher was an eye-opening experience. Coming from a world of expensive suits, fireside chats, and strong handshakes to that of an environment full of chatty little people running up for high fives and hugs as they entered their classroom. What a thrilling change of pace that was. Teaching is not a job, it's a lifetime profession. Striving to open doors, make connections, and fit that puzzle pieces into constantly evolving picture for students. We think of each other as a family, we learn together, we make mistakes and correct them together. We've grown up alongside each other. Teachers, staff, and administration constantly support each other. Parents and community members work together with the district. We've become a team with the main mission to enlighten our children to envision their highest strengths and abilities. Tonight, we should have all been together to share this event. However, things do change. Remote learning has taught me that we will persevere as a community and as a team, striving for a common goal, educating our children to the best of our combined talents. So, will I miss all of this? More than I can put into words. And the children are the greatest gift of all. One of my parents once told me that I was chosen for the classroom and to be a teacher. It was an honor to be chosen for every classroom. I'm honored to be here tonight as a Kaneland retiree. Truly honored. So congratulations and thank you, Karen. And our last retiree, serving 33 years in Kaneland School District. Most recently, Linda Zulkowski is working at John Stewart right now as an RTI reading interventionist. And Linda also shared a note that she would like me to share on her behalf. So, dear Board of Education, Dr. Layden, Dr. Fuchs, and the Kaneland community, thank you for this opportunity to be recognized as one of Kaneland 2020 retirees. My tenure with Kaneland spans many years. I attended Kaneland junior and senior high schools, graduating in 1978. I was lucky to have had some of the best teachers that helped shape who I am today. After some time away, I found myself back at Kaneland after moving back to the Fox Valley area. And 34 years later, poof, I'm retiring. I'm thankful to the Board of Education and my administrators for allowing me to grow professionally and follow my passion for learning by providing opportunities for conference attendance and master's level classes at reduced costs. This enabled me to implement the latest best practice instruction available and guide my colleagues as well. I'm very, very grateful to the district for those experiences. I was fortunate enough to work in all 4 of the elementary buildings and got to know almost every elementary teacher in the district. I'm proud to say that I collaborated with the most hardworking, conscientious of teachers. That work happens at the elementary level. The work that happens at the elementary level is remarkable. Kaneland students are so fortunate to learn from such an expert staff. I not only value the professional relationships, but also the personal relationships I've gained over the years. I'll miss that camaraderie so much. And last, but most importantly, I'll miss the students. Hundreds of students have entered and exited my classrooms, and I've had so many fond memories of my children. The thrill of teaching a 6-year-old to read will never fade, and its memory will always put a smile on my face. I'm grateful that I'm still in touch with some of my students and their wonderful parents all of these years later. What a gift these relationships are to me. I look forward to spending more time with my grandchildren and finding new adventures in my retirement. Thank you, Kaneland, for support in allowing me to have my dream job/jobs for 34 of my 36 years in education. Sincerely, Linda Zulkowski. Congratulations, Linda. And thank you for your years of service. I would like to take a second to congratulate and thank all of our retirees. Hope, again, you were able to join us. If not, you can watch us at a later date. But our retirees over the course of their careers have dedicated 203 total years of service to Kaneland School District. So again, thank you for your dedication, and we wish we could be in person with you over at Harder in our 6th grade team room, but please be sure once we're on site, you come back and visit and say hello. Again, thanks to our retirees. As part of our salutes tonight, and thank you, Tim, for showing that slideshow while we shared our retirees. We'd like to take a second now to introduce, trying to find her in my box, Sam Aversa. Sam, if you would go ahead and unmute yourself, we'd like to welcome Sam. She was approved at the last board meeting. As you know, Sam district for over 10 years as a teacher, a dean of students at Harder, and most recently, assistant principal at John Stewart and Kaneland Blackberry Creek. So we'd like to introduce Sam and let Sam introduce herself to the board and share a little bit of background information if you'd like, Sam. So welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to continue on in the Kaneland School District and to have the principal position at John Stewart. Like Dr. Layden said, 9 years teaching, took a year off to be with my children at home, but definitely had only stayed a year away because I had to be back with the students. So I had the opportunity to continue teaching. And then, like you said, the dean of students, then on to assistant principal. So with my supportive family that's been waiting on the background and has been like crawling around me, I will introduce them really quickly. Because without their support, I couldn't have this. This is Blake. He's just turned 9. And Brady, he just turned 11 yesterday. And my husband, Brian. Without them, you know, this all wouldn't be possible. And we just love our Kaneland family that we have. And I'm so happy to continue on in this position.
Well, on behalf of everybody on this at this meeting, the virtual meeting, Sam, we'd like to officially welcome you into your new role. Look forward, or nice to see your children. And as you know, Brian teaches and coaches at the high school. So good to see all of you. Stay healthy and look forward to seeing you on site soon. So thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thanks. Congratulations.
Next, we'd like to recognize Vita Martin. Vita, I see you're muted and the video is gone. Are you with us, Vita? We will take a second and move on to another salute and recognition, and we can come back to Vita and see if we can find Vita, and hopefully, because she was there earlier. So we'll be back to Vita in a second. But next, I'd like to introduce and welcome, Dr. Mum, but she has some great news to share. Part it's a reminder from our school improvement plan goals for this year. You've already heard about under indicators of success, but we'd like to share that again. And also a special recognition from Learning Forward conferences that we've attended for a number of years. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Mum and you can share the good news. Sarah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Layden. We first wanted to give a quick update just on our school improvement plans. I know you have seen that we exceeded in both of them this year through the indicators of success, but just wanted to share a couple data points with you because especially this time of year and this year, we need some extra celebration. So in our proficiency-based progress goal, we started the year with 28% of the students as the pre-data, knowing the I can statement when we asked them on the spot in the classroom they were at, and being able to apply to tell the interviewer, so I not only know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I know my next steps in learning. Our goal was to hit to 65% by the end of the school year based on kind of the process that we're doing over the course of 3 years. And we far exceeded that. We got to 80.5% of our students on the spot being able to tell you the I can statement, exactly what they were doing that day, and then being able to tell us their next steps in their learning plan. So that huge understanding of both teacher clarity of what they're teaching and student clarity was very apparent this spring in our data collection. Our second SIP goal is the learner profile, which we are in our multiple years of. The learner profile, just for a quick update, is making sure that the students know who they are as a learner, how they best need the environment or communication or how they learn best, and then being able to advocate for themselves, which is a huge push that we've been really focusing on. At the start of the year, we were at 32% of the students understanding their specific individual learning needs and being able to advocate in some way, whether it was asking to slow down instruction or ask for multiple reminders or ask for a different alternative setting. And at the end of the year, our goal again was 65%, and we far exceeded it with 75.8%. So a huge kudos to our students and staff and administrators who have kept the focus really on let's know our clarity, let's know what we're learning, and let's be reflective learners. So huge excitement. The last celebration, which I think it was the only day out of all the last 2 months that Dr. Layden was excited to not have face-to-face because I was jumping and yelling and screaming as I called him on the phone. And I can only imagine if he would have seen me in person, he would have been like, this lady's got some troubles. I was so excited. The Learning Forward organization is the former National Staff Development Council. They have a yearly international conference. It's always held in Canada or the United States, but it brings people from at least 7 different countries, from all the states. Typically a couple thousand people attend every year, closer to 3,000 to 5,000 every year. Kaneland has been attending since 2019, and the focus of the conference is to really highlight good professional development programs and how to grow professional leaders and how to really focus on personalized learning and personalized professional development. Each year, whatever host they have their conference in, which occurs in December, they look at all the districts in the entire state, and they find and select one district in the entire state that they feel their professional development structures have really produced huge student gains, huge teacher growth opportunities, and really allow for personalized professional growth of individuals. This year, we submitted kind of our story on professional development, the Ignite conference, the academies, the cohorts that we have, and just the different collaborative structures we have through the administrative PD, our SIP goals, and into their faculty meetings. And we found out a couple Fridays ago that we are the one and only district in Illinois that has been selected as the Learning Forward Professional Development Highlight District, which means we are given a full day on the first day of the conference to tell our story, to train people from across the state, across the United States and different countries on just how great Kaneland is. So I cannot tell you how very excited I was, and poor Dr. Layden and Mr. Raleigh, because I called them back to back. I couldn't contain myself. I had to go outside and run around my driveway as I was talking to them, because it's just such a cool honor for someone to recognize the hard work that Kaneland has been doing. So kudos to us.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. And I agree, 100% congratulations and kudos to us as we get to that conference. Let's hope with COVID-19, everything is good, and with the conference hosted in Chicago, and we'll have a number of staff there. So we'll make sure we provide more updates to our board and to our community as we get closer, and then after we present. So congratulations to us, and thanks for sharing, Sarah. Vita, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. Sorry we lost you for a little bit. We will now transition and introduce you and let Vita introduce herself a little bit too. Vita is joining us at the Fox Valley Career Center, as you know, as the Assistant Director. The past 13 years, Vita has worked in the guidance department at Sandwich High School and has a CTE background also. So we are proud and happy to welcome Vita to Kaneland. And with that, Vita, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow, I think you kind of stole my thunder. That was really what I was going to say. I have 20 years experience outside of education. So I had a big background in customer service, adult education, and in hospitality before digging in deep and getting a master's in school counseling, and spent the last 14 years at Sandwich High School. So this is just right time, and I love CTE and I love opportunity for all. So this is going to be a great chance to join a great group of people. I already have a super good feeling about it. So I'm happy to join the Kaneland team. And as a side note, I actually did my school counseling internship at Kaneland High School. So I do know some of the people at the high school. So it's kind of like I've come full circle now, and it's a good thing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Welcome back. Vita, aren't you currently also taking a welding class right now too?
Yeah, I just finished up TIG welding. That's my 6th welding class. I started manual machine shop operations, but only had 3 times in the lab, and online just doesn't do it. So I'll have to retake the class. So just like everybody else, I've had to face some challenges, but yeah, TIG is awesome. So.
Well, great. Well, again, welcome back to Kaneland, if you've obviously already been here and experienced that. So thank you, and look forward to having you join the Kaneland family. So last 2 things I'd like to share is the next one. Brooke Heinsohn, as you know, teaches at Kaneland High School and is coordinates FFA. She was our Future Farmer of America program, and she's been a number of our board meetings introducing her clubs and recognizing her students. I do want to read a recognition piece that she has to become FFA Teacher of the Year. So the certificate is nationwide. The Illinois FFA, the Illinois Association of Vocational Agricultural Teachers, Compeer Financial, and Farm Credit Illinois proudly recognize you as a nominee for the 2019-2020 Golden Owl Award, honoring outstanding ag educators across Illinois. So as the school year wears on, I think this summer is when we will learn, and Brooke will learn any further recognition that she received. So congratulations also to Brooke, and we will keep you posted. And the last thing that we do have, I want to mention is last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. And typically we would have had the teachers in our board meeting stand up and be recognized. So if there are teachers watching wherever you are virtually, please go ahead, stand up. We will recognize you, give you a round of applause. So happy belated Teacher Appreciation Week, a week late, but thank you to all of our teachers and the work that they do. So thank you. And President Sparber, I'm happy to turn it back to you. Those are our salutes, recognition, and introductions for tonight. So thank you.
Those were awesome salutes. What a fun night. Unfortunately, virtually, because those all would have been great to do in person.
Yeah.
But definitely thank you to all the retirees and the new or not so new personnel, and definitely Dr. Mum as well. So those were great,
Yes.
great salutes. I don't think we have any public comment tonight. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the following action items: the approval of the Treasurer's Report, April 2020, approval of minutes of April 27th, 2020 virtual meeting, approval of resignations, terminations, employment of staff, approval of destruction of audio recordings from closed session meetings from October 2018, approval of a special education workload plan, approval of bid custodial services, approval of non-speak educational support staff salary increases for 2020-21, approval of Valley's salary and benefits recommendation, approval of administration contracts and salary increases for 2020-21, approval of classroom use agreement with Mid-Valley Special Education Cooperative, approval of storage use agreement with Mid-Valley Special Education Cooperative, approval of health insurance renewal, approval of disposable trade-in of a maintenance vehicle.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik,
Gail,
Mrs.
you're on mute. Gail, you're on mute.
I'll come back to her. Mr. Rivas? Mr. Rivas? Mrs. Sparber?
Aye.
Mrs. Witt?
Aye.
Just need Mrs. Pavlik and Mr. Rivas.
I'm back. I froze. Yes.
Okay, and Mrs. Pavlik?
Did she freeze? I had frozen a minute too, but all right, we will say motion carries.
Well, there's
Oh.
Gail. Gail,
Yep.
can you
Can you
hear us?
hear me now? I approve.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Motion carries 6-0 then. All right, so we'll move on to J1, presentation of high deductible health insurance plan.
Yes, I will go ahead and turn that over to Dr. Fuchs. I know we have a couple guests that she can introduce, and I'll let Dr. Fuchs walk us through that agenda item, and we'll see what questions we have and what information our representatives from Hub want to share also. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Layton. Good evening. At the last board meeting, we talked about health insurance renewal. And then as you just approved the consent agenda, the renewal has now been approved for next year. However, the board has been interested in exploring a high deductible health insurance plan, which would be combined with a health savings account. This would be added as an optional plan for our employees. I've asked our broker, Mr. Morcos, and his partner, Deb Russo, to join us tonight to take the board through what the insurance committee has been studying over the past year. So please understand you're getting a short version of what we did over several different meetings. And so certainly if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer them tonight if we have the answers. And if not, we can research that and bring answers back at the end of May if needed. The goal for us would be to decide if the board wants to make that an option beginning January 1 for the employees. The employees would sign up in the fall during our open enrollment, but we need time to get the plan in place and educate the employees on the opportunity if that's what the board selects to do. And so I'm asking that that the board make a decision whether they want to add this as an option, probably no later than June 29th board meeting. If it needs to go later beyond that, then we'll have to reevaluate the timeline. But for now, we have plenty of time to talk about and discuss what it looks like and ask questions. So at this time, what I'd like to do is welcome Mr. Morcos and Ms. Russo to do the presentation that was in the board packet.
Sounds good. I don't know if Steve is online. I don't know. Have you seen him, Julianne?
Yeah, I can see him. He's right here. Stephen, can you keep talking? He's not coming through though. He was earlier. Okay. Let me see if I can get him on my phone.
And then Julianne, just put your phone up to the speaker or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to try and do.
Okay.
And if not, Julianne, I can walk through the information.
I can hear you, Julianne.
I think we're going to get too much feedback. Hold on one second. Let me mute this mic. We'll wait. It's not going to work.
You're on mute now, Julianne. Oh, okay.
All right, Deb, why don't you go ahead?
Have them call the number, Julianne.
Oh, okay. Stephen, call the number on the
invite.
Thank you. I'll do that. Thanks, Pedro. Deb, do you want to get us started while he's getting, oh, there he is. He's back here. Yeah, go ahead, Stephen. Can you call the number on the thing? It's on the invite. And Tim, you can go to the first page of the slide to get ready for when he's on. Keep going a little bit more.
I can just get started going through the slide deck. Does that sound good? And we'll let Steve figure out the phone and then he can jump in.
Yes, thank you, Deb.
Sure. So as Julianne mentioned, we've been educating the committee on what a high deductible health plan is with a savings account. And it works really just the same way that your plan does today, although it's with a higher deductible. So if you flip to the next slide, we'll kind of get into what qualifies as a high deductible health plan. So there are certain regulations that makes it a high deductible plan that you can open a health savings account with. So I'll go over the IRS requires you to have a minimum deductible and that deductible is $1,400 for a single individual and $2,800 for a family individual. These are established by the IRS, like we said, and so what we're showing here are the 2020 limits. And if you want to have an embedded deductible, like your plan is today on the PPO plan, and that means for a family, if you want to be able for one member of the family to hit that individual amount, it would require the plan to have a $2,800 single deductible and a $5,400 family deductible. And there's also an annual out-of-pocket limit as well. And so the maximum there for a high deductible health plan is a $6,900 out-of-pocket max for a single individual and $13,800 for a family. So you kind of trade for higher deductibles and out-of-pocket limits for lower premiums on your plan. Next slide. So this just highlights some of the differences between a high deductible health plan and your traditional health plan that you have today that's offered by the district. Again, like I said previously, the minimum and maximum deductibles and out-of-pocket limits are defined by the IRS. All benefits are subject to the deductible, and those include RX or pharmacy expenses. And then along with those higher deductibles for a qualified high deductible health plan, you can open an HSA or a health savings account. Next slide. So this just gives you an overview of what a health savings account is. So as we stated previously, you have to have the high deductible health plan, and you can offer a health savings account, or an employee can open a health savings account with that eligible higher deductible health plan. And just some key facts about it is that it's an employee-owned account. The employer and the employee can contribute up to an annual amount every year, again, set by the IRS. So it's $3,550 for an individual or $7,100 for a family. The benefits of the account, it's triple tax savings. So the contributions into the health savings account is pre-tax. The funds that grow in the account are accrue tax-free. And then any money withdrawn is also tax-free. And then the IRS allows individuals over the age of 55 a catch-up contribution. And that's $1,000 on top of those annual allowable limits. Steve, you want me to keep going?
Well, you've done a fine job. If you want me to jump in, or you want to just take us through these slides, and I'll pick up when we get to the HSA.
Okay, sounds good.
To the plans that we looked at. Sorry about that, everyone.
Tim, go ahead and switch slides.
So what you can use the health savings account, we've listed some examples of a qualified medical expense. So you can see almost all medical care. So anything plan related, deductibles, co-insurance, doctor's office visits, inpatient and outpatient treatments, prescription drugs. You can use the HSA dollars to pay for prescription drugs. Similar to the flexible spending account, you can also use it for over-the-counter medications. You have to obtain a prescription. Some of that has been loosened while we're kind of quarantined at home with obtaining a prescription from your physicians, but you do similarly need a prescription for those over-the-counter drugs. Insulin for diabetics, and that can be with or without a prescription. You can use it on dental and vision care. And then in some situations and instances, you can use it on insurance premiums. One being COBRA. If you're retired and have, you use it as a retirement savings vehicle, you can use it on health insurance after you turn age 65. You can use it on health insurance premiums while unemployed. So there are some things outside of just medical expenses that you can use those dollars for as well. You can flip to the next slide. So some advantages to a health savings account. The flexible spending accounts, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. Different on the health savings accounts. If you don't use it, you get to keep it. It's like a mini checking account. So the money that goes in it stays there. It still provides you very comprehensive medical protection, similarly to the PPO plan that's provided today. I think earlier we stated, in turn for higher deductibles are ultimately lower premiums. And then the long-term financial benefits, just helping save for the future, having funds to roll over. So if you don't use it, those roll over from year to year. You can invest the funds just like an IRA. And then the HSA is yours for life. So regardless if you stay with Kaneland or leave or you retire, that money stays with you. And like I said, is kind of a little checking or retirement savings vehicle. And just the footnote on the bottom there is that employees can only contribute to a health savings account when they are enrolled in a high deductible health plan. So it has to be tied to those higher deductible health plans. Next slide. So we wanted to highlight some of the disadvantages of an HSA. As you're aware, illness can sometimes be unpredictable. So it makes it hard to budget for healthcare expenses. So there's a little bit more out-of-pocket expenses on the higher deductible health plan, which we're going to show you some examples that we've looked at on what, you know, a high deductible health plan can look aside from your plan. Information about cost and quality of medical care can be difficult sometimes to find. People find it challenging to set aside money to put into their HSAs. People who are older and sicker may not be able to save as much as young, healthier people. The pressure to save money in your HSA might lead you to not seek medical care when you need it. So we would hope people wouldn't forego medical treatment because they don't want to use their money or pay higher costs out of their own pockets. And then if you take money out of your HSA for non-medical expenses, you have to pay taxes on it. So it is triple tax savings, but when you use it for something non-medical related, obviously the money would be taxed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump. Oh, thank you, Deb. And again, my apologies. But yeah, so, and I missed a little bit of how you started this because I was fumbling with the phone. But I think those slides that Deb just went through, the point of us kind of going through that with the board was to give the board an idea of how, you know, how these HSA plans are structured. And, you know, Deb pointed just a minute ago to some of the advanced, you know, you've got, it's really quite simple. You've got a plan, a health plan that has to meet certain criteria as defined by the IRS, meaning higher deductibles, higher out-of-pocket costs, certain services like prescription drugs have to be included as part of the deductible. Some of those nuances, that has to be the benefit plan, and then it's paired with this financial product, which is a health savings account. And there are some advantages to that as well that Deb just pointed to. The money, of course, goes in tax-free. And as long as you're using it for qualified medical expenses, it's always tax-free. It grows tax-deferred. If you, for those people that, you know, over time can build some balances, there are, you know, ways to earn interest off of that money. And as you get into your older years, you can use those HSA dollars, which of course grew and went in tax-free for other qualified medical expenses, including Medicare premiums and things of that nature. So that was sort of the concept behind it. But in this, I think, slide illustrates the, but you know, the objective, obviously, when you have a plan that has higher out-of-pocket expenses, and that's what you use the HSA financial piece for, the HSA account. The idea is to create a kind of a delta between the two plans and how much, how rich the benefits are. And this slide, I think, illustrates that pretty well. And just keep in mind, we looked at a lot of different plans, excuse me, and there are a lot of different things that we can do to modify this, but this is sort of what we recommended and where we landed, you know, based on your current PPO structure. And I think you can see, obviously, the deductibles for this HSA, which is obviously on the right-hand column. The deductibles are considerably higher. The out-of-pocket maximums are considerably higher. The, of course, the prescription drugs, as I mentioned, are not going to be a simple co-payment structure. They're going to have to flow through, meet the deductible first, then be paid once that deductible is met. And at the very bottom, I don't know if you can see this, but this is sort of how we judge what these plans are expected to pay. And we put what we call an actuarial value. In your current plan, which is on the left, it has an actuarial value of 91%. And what that means in general, that anybody participating in this plan, your current PPO plan, in general, not every single case, of course, but in general, 91% of their overall medical expenses are going to be covered by this plan or your current plan, as opposed to the HSA option that we are illustrating here, which has about a 68.4% actuarial value. So there's, you know, a little over a 20% difference. And, you know, that's by design. You have to do that. First of all, you have to meet the criteria that's laid out by the IRS, the deductibles, the out-of-pockets. But you also have to try to, in order to meet the objective, which is to save money, you have to have a plan that is not as rich. So I thought this was a nice way to illustrate that. Does that make sense to everybody?
Could somebody zoom in on that, on the presentation, please? Could we get it a little bigger?
And again, we can do a lot of different things with this HSA plan, but we felt like this made sense, and I can get into the details of that if you'd like. I think you zoomed in a little too much.
Give Tim just a second to zoom in and then scooch it up a little. There you go. Now, can you zoom in one more, Tim, or no? There you go. Then scroll a little bit to see the bottom. There you go. Perfect. The actuarial value is there at the bottom. That's what Stephen was just talking about.
Now, if you modified the HSA and made it richer, which you could, you're going to have a hard time getting it too much richer because of some of the regulatory constraints. But you know, then you're going to lose. Well, you'll see, I think, in the next slide that a little bit of the challenge, or maybe the next two slides from now, a little bit of the challenge of that is you have to somehow, we want to be able to capture savings, right? You don't want them to be too close. If our objective is to find some savings, and I think when we get into the contributions, you may understand a little better. But any questions on this or on the actuarial value? Okay. Any questions? I'm sorry, I gotta. Any questions on some of the material that Deb walked through? Okay, good. Then I'll just go to the next slide. Thank you, Tim. So these are projections based on how many people migrate, projected savings based on how many people migrate to, if the board were to choose to add this HSA as an option. And you can see we've got, four different, examples of what that migration might look like. Now, you may ask in a few minutes, well, why do we only expect, or why are we even showing 1%? That seems like a very low number. I think you'll see in a minute when we talk about contributions why we think that may be a possibility. But this slide really represents what the savings would be in the top, the top where it says adding HSA as an option. You can see if we had 1% migration, for example, the total savings would be about $18,000. If we had 3%, 61, 5%, 110, and 10%, 224. We show, and again, this was just our idea because the contributions, which are going to be on the next slide, we have to somehow give people a reason to want to, if the board were to introduce this and want this plan implemented, I think you have to look at the current contribution schedule. And we thought that by making a district contribution or a board, contribution to the HSA account would help motivate people. And we, as you can see, we took what is a fairly standard employer contribution of $500 for single and $1,000 for family. You can increase that, you can decrease that up to the limits. But we used, for this example and for this illustration, we used the 500 for single and 1,000 for family. So that's what that bottom column represents, is the savings minus if the district were to make a contribution, or the board were to agree to a contribution. Obviously, instead of $18,000 savings for 1% migration, you end up with $15,000 savings, and down the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What would happen if you split the savings between the district and the HSA?
Well, it depends on, I'm not sure how you would, I think if you have to look at the contributions, and in fact, maybe we can go to that and we can always come back to this. But yeah, I mean, if you split it, if you split it, obviously those savings are split and cut in half, and you could do an audit and decide, or once the enrollment, after the open enrollment, and figure out how many people migrate. But I think,
I guess my question is, A, based on the rules, can you do that? And B, then I'd want to see that chart from the previous screen on if that looks more appealing to people.
Well, you can, earlier, one of the slides Deb showed earlier, she showed the maximum contributions that go into an HSA. Those contributions are employer and employee contributions. It doesn't matter who's contributing. So you could contribute, you could make a mid-year contribution if you'd like as a board, as long as you didn't exceed those limits that we touched on earlier.
In the calculation, how did you split between single and family to get the HSA contribution? Did you use our numbers?
Yeah, and across the board, we assume the 1%, 3%, 5%, 10%.
Right.
So we just use the current enrollment based on the tiers. Someone enrolled employee only, employee plus spouse, employee plus children, and family, and kind of carried that through with those percentages, the 1 through 4%.
Thanks.
Correct. Any other questions on this slide? Okay, Tim, do you mind? I'm sorry, go to the next slide. So here's one of the challenges, or here's what the contributions would look like if we were to add an HSA. And I don't know if you can go down a little bit. Thank you. So the this is the snapshot of your current enrollment on the right. These are the two different categories of participants, and you can see the PPO contributions in the middle, and then what we project the HSA contributions would be, which are about a 17% reduction in employee contributions. And you can see these monthly contributions. There's not a whole lot of incentive to drive people into an HSA with the way the current contributions are structured. For example, you take a single person, which is where you have the bulk of your population, really, or at least half of your population. You have a single person that's going to save $6.43 a month, but their deductible then would go from $500 to $3,000. So it's going to be hard to motivate some of these folks away from the current plan based on the current contribution structure.
Okay, so I have a question about that because and I don't mean to just, I'm sure there are differences, but I do have a high deductible plan personally. It is Blue Cross. I was on the PPO and I switched to the high deductible plan. And the difference in my premiums at my job, I'm saving 40%. So okay. I'm wondering why the numbers would be so different here. Because I mean, for me, the difference in the premiums is what's paying the high it's funding the high deductible.
Well,
so it makes it worth it for me. So I guess I'm just curious as to why it would only be a few dollars here when mine was so dramatically different.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And every plan is structured different, and and contributions are different. They're all over the board. What we would these HSA rates are really tied to two things. They're tied to the as I said, there's about a little over 20% difference in the actuarial value between the two plans. And they're brought down a little bit because the expectation of a lot of migration will obviously affect the premium equivalent rates that we have to get to make to properly fund the plan. So I'm not sure if there's a big difference between the PPO plan that you were on at your current employer and the HSA and how they structured the contributions. I can't really speak to that, but that could very well be what you're experiencing.
Yeah, I just think sometimes high deductible plans get a bad rap, and it's because actually, in my experience, it's saving my family a ton of money. So, when I see things like this, I get a little skeptical. I don't know that it, I don't know. It just seems my reality is so different that it's hard for me to look at this and think that it's accurate.
Yeah. Well, our intention is not to give them a bad rap. I like HSAs. But I think one of the challenges, and we sort of knew this when we started, is that you can, as a board, you can decide if you really want to motivate people into an HSA, you can decide what you want those contribution levels to be. What would concern me is that we want to make sure that we're properly funding the claims, so that, because we are self-funded, we don't want to underfund it so that we end up running above expected at the end of the year.
So did you just say one of the concerns is we don't want too many people going to a HSA because we'll lose our cash flow to fund the claims on the other side?
No, what I said is if we were to if you, these HSA contributions that we have here are our projections based on that plan and what we expect the migration. We really use two pieces of data to kind of come up with those contributions. The difference between the actuarial value against your current plan and expected migration. And so what I'm saying is, if you lowered those HSA contributions much beyond that, then we do run the risk, at least the first year, of underfunding it. That's all I'm saying. Underfunding the plan.
You mean underfunding the whatever
expected claims? The expected claims, yes.
Okay,
if we don't capture.
Okay, I guess then that's not. I guess that's a criteria that I didn't realize was being included. That it kind of short circuits the ability to do a aggressive HSA plan or high deductible plan if you're worried about covering premiums on the other side.
Are you asking if you're trying to get HSA premiums to pay for PPO claims?
What I'm hearing, I might be hearing it wrong.
Well, again,
it's a balancing act, I guess, but you got to.
And that would answer my question.
So yes, it is a balancing act, especially when when you introduce a new plan like this and you don't know what that migration will be. You want to make sure that you don't set those HSA rates are set based on the difference in the actuarial value of the plan and an expected migration, which is fairly conservative. Okay. And we do that because if let's say we lower those rates by another 20%, but we only get 1% migration or we get a greater migration, then there's got to be a balance. Then the fund gets underfunded. So the first year you have to be cautious in how you structure the contributions.
All right. So what I'm hearing, and correct me how I'm wrong, is that if we were to make the high deductible plan attractive enough by funding it or seeding it with enough money from the district side, we get the migration that we would want to get the savings, but then we're going to be short for paying our medical claims on the other side, or possibly be short.
But the other side to you means PPO, or will you be short paying your HSA medical claims?
Well, they come out of this. They come out of the same pot.
But they're trying to make it fair for both groups. So
right.
do these premium rates make it so in your projections that if 100% of the people went to HSA, it would be properly funded, or if 100% of the people went to the PPO, it would be properly funded? Or is this set up so the HSA has to pay for PPO claims or the PPO has to pay for HSA claims? Is there an imbalance?
No, it's set up so that, again, you've got to, if you kind of step back and you think about the difference in the two plans are a little over 20%. So we're using almost 17% difference. We've added a little bit because we don't know how many will migrate, and so we're being a little conservative. If you wanted to change those contributions, I would say that the more aggressive, you would only be at whatever the difference is. I think it's 21% versus 17 in the two plans. I mean, that would be down the line contribution based on actuarial value, and we were just trying to protect the integrity of the overall fund balance. So, but even if you had a 22% HSA contribution, you can see, back to my original point, if you brought those HSA contributions for single down by another 5%, is that going to be enough to motivate a single enrollment for a $2,500 difference in risk? You're talking about a $500 deductible versus a $3,000 deductible. Is that going to be enough to maybe now call it $10 a month or $9 a month? Does that make sense? Will that motivate them? I don't think the change we could change that to 21% or 22. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference or motivate people to switch, or at least a lot of the people, at least the single people. And
so I don't mean to, I'm really sorry that I'm going on my personal thing, but so one thing, there are other things that can make these plans more desirable. And in our case, it was that any maintenance drug is free. So we get my husband's a type 2 diabetic. You think of these things for young and healthy people. My husband's a type 2 diabetic, and we were paying hundreds of dollars a month for just the co-pays under the PPO. And because our high deductible plan, which again, I said is Blue Cross, gives us those maintenance medications for free, that savings coupled with the premium savings, coupled with the $1,000 contribution from my employer, covers the out-of-pocket maximum for the family that we have to hit. I mean, we save that much, or we break even, or in a year when we don't have a lot of things going on, we would save a lot. So I guess I'm wondering, where do those other types of enticing parts of the benefits come in? How do we know about those types of things?
Deb, I can't remember. Can you speak to, I know on the obviously all the preventative services are covered at first dollar 100%, right? So there's no deductible. Those are services that are covered on your current plan at 100%, and this plan is structured the same. Do you recall I think all the RX, at least the way we structured this, were built and would apply toward the deductible. But I would say this, there are things we can do to modify the benefit structure if you want to use that to incentivize. But again, you're gonna go from a 68% actuarial value. If you increase the benefits, then you're going to bring that actuarial value closer to the current program structure.
Yeah, there's definitely things that you can do on the high deductible health side as it relates to pharmacy. You can choose the formulary listing where your drugs kind of hit that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And there's also different preventive drug lists like you're experiencing. Diabetic supplies and insulin are covered 100% for you today. So there are different ways you can structure those pharmacy benefits within a high deductible health plan. But as Steve says, your employer is now picking up those costs. So a plan such as that might make it a little bit more expensive for the district.
Right. It's going to shrink that delta, or it's going to increase the actuarial value if you do that.
Is there more for the presentation? I know there have been some good questions. Is there more on the presentation side that Deb, you and Stephen can move towards?
Yeah, I think we have a couple examples here that we just thought we would illustrate how the plans would work. Both plans would work under a couple different scenarios. Deb, do you mind walking through those?
Sure. Yeah. And I think you'll see as we walk through some of these examples that the current plan that the district offers is very rich to employees, and they have very, good contributions for these rich benefits. So when you look at it side by side, it doesn't always make, the higher deductible health plans more attractive. But as we went through earlier, there are definitely some advantages with the high deductible health plan. And number one being that you can set aside tax-free money into a health savings account. So we've put together a few examples. This first example just takes into account an employee only. So you can see Scott, he's employee only coverage. He's healthy, he's rarely sick. He exercises regularly, is a frequent runner, has a healthy diet with lots of fruits and vegetables. Because Scott leads such a healthy lifestyle, he rarely gets sick and has to go to a doctor. So we looked at his estimated healthcare expenses under each medical option. Now keep in mind, these are in-network only services, so we didn't take into account any out-of-network doctors. But we've shown you just on the top row, the employee only deductible on your current PPO, it's $500. And with the high deductible health plan, we've looked at side by side your current plan, there's a $3,000 employee only deductible. And so you can see with the HSA options, the middle column assumes no board contribution to a health savings account. And then the farther right-hand column assumes a board contribution of $500. So you can see right under the employee deductible is that district contribution to an HSA. So you can see on the far right-hand side, it would be a $500 employee only contribution. He chooses not to make any contribution into his HSA account. He has one preventive care visit where we just said all preventive care is covered at 100% on both plan options. He has one primary care physician office visit. So you can see across the board, it's a $100 copay because the way the PPO plan is set up today, it's subject to deductible and co-insurance as it would be on the HSA plan option as well. Scott takes 4 months of a brand name tier 2 prescription drug. So these are $50 each. Your current PPO has a $50 RX deductible, which would need to be satisfied before those copays kick in. But once the RX deductible is met, he would pay $30 per script at that tier 2 brand drug. And on the HSA option, he would pay the full price, the $50 for those 4 months of the brand name drug. So $200 on the high deductible health plan versus $140 on the PPO plan. So you can see the total amount of Scott's medical care is $240 on the PPO plan and then $300 on the HSA. And then when you build in those contributions, where you just saw on the last slide, the assumed kind of contributions that we've been working with behind the scenes, he'd pay annually $533 for the PPO plan and $456 on the HSA plan. So total out-of-pocket expenses for Scott, including his responsibility for the medical care, plus his annual contributions, you can see is $773 on the PPO plan or $756 on the HSA plan. And then if there were to be a board contribution, you can see he would use his board contribution and have money left over to use into a future year or next year's expenses.
Do you have it handy how much the district would save on this?
I don't have that right now, but we can provide that as a follow-up.
Please, thank you.
We have 2 more examples similar to this. Does anybody have any questions about how the math works or how the examples work? If not, we'll move on to the second example. So this assumes a family. Amanda, she has family coverage for her husband and 2 children. Her son, Jack, needs care for a broken arm this year. So you can kind of see what we've built into. We've built into Amanda going to the physical therapist and taking a preventive medication that she buys at retail. We've also assumed that Jack, her son, needs care for a broken arm from a sports injury. And we've also estimated that Amanda and her husband will need up to 5 office visits during the year. So we can kind of take a look at, in this example, how the cost of medical out of pocket stacks up for Amanda and her family. So you can see on the top row, just shows you Amanda's family deductible. On the PPO plan, as it stands today, that the district office offers, it's a $900 deductible. And on the HSA options, you can see it's a $6,000 deductible. The district contribution for family, we've assumed in that last column is $1,000. She wouldn't get it today on the PPO plan. And obviously in the middle option, that doesn't take into account a contribution from the district. So you can see the preventive care is covered at 100% on both plan options. The primary care physician office visits, we've assumed $100 each. Again, that would work the same on both plans because the PPO plan today is set up as deductible and coinsurance. So the out-of-pocket costs for those are $500. The 8 specialist office visits are $200 each. So you can see on the PPO plan currently, Amanda and her family would spend about $520, and that would be the balance of their deductible and then coinsurance. And then again, it would be a little bit more expensive out of pocket on the high deductible health plan, as you know, you're still trying to meet that deductible. So they would pay $1,600 for those 8 specialist visits. And then looking at the prescription drugs, you can see there's 12 months of a generic prescription. They cost $25 each. Again, on the PPO plan, the RX deductible would need to be satisfied, and then there'd be a $15 copay per script. And then on the HSA plan, Amanda would just pay $25 each for those 12 scripts, or $300. And then services for her son's broken arm, we've estimated $3,000. So again, on the PPO plan, it would be subject to the deductible and coinsurance. So $300 out of pocket. And on the HSA plan, it would be the rest of the deductible and then coinsurance, or $3,000. So you can see Amanda's total out of pocket medical expenses are $1,540 on the PPO plan, and then $5,400 on the HSA plan option. And so you can see too, the premium spent for family coverage, it's $5,600 on the PPO plan, and then roughly $4,800 on the HSA plan. So Amanda's total out-of-pocket expenses are obviously least expensive on the current PPO plan, most expensive on the HSA option without the board contribution, and then the one with the board contribution. If she put in, which we've assumed here, the full contribution that the IRS would allow her would be $7,100. She'd have some money to move over into the next year, a balance of $1,700, and that includes the board contribution of $1,000 and her contribution of $6,100. Any questions on this example? I know it's pretty detailed, but we just wanted to show you with multiple family members and multiple different medical issues specific to a family.
The one thing that I want to point out, Deb, before you move on to the next example, this example that we just went over assumes the teacher rates. What that means is that the board is currently contributing 75% towards the dependent coverage. When we go to the final example, that one is an example of our other ESP rates. On the other ESP rates, our educational support personnel, the board is currently contributing 50% towards the dependent coverage. So they are getting currently less benefits because typically they don't work the full 12 months, but neither do the teachers. So this is primarily our parapros and other support staff that work less than 12 months. So they get 50% board contribution towards dependent whereas the teachers get 75%. So Deb, if you want to go through this example with the other ESP, this will be our last example, and then we can continue our conversation with some questions.
Thanks, Julianne. I forgot we had these right behind it. So yeah, as Julianne said, this takes into account the same exact example that we saw. The only difference here is that we're using everybody but the teacher rate, the ESP rates. So you can see noted down below the annual premium for this family coverage is a little bit higher. And it makes those total out-of-pocket expenses for this family a little bit more even between that PPO plan and high deductible health plan. Any questions on this example?
Would you like to see examples of the district cost for all three of these on all three of these examples?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We could. Or the district savings. The district savings. I'm sorry.
What I'd really like to see is, I know these numbers, I'm just making them up, but let's say the district's going to save $100 on a plan. If we took that 50 as district savings and put it in the district's pocket and use the other 50 as the contribution to the employees' HSA, I'd like to see where those numbers land.
Look,
does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, you need to make it like a little, I'd like to see something that's a little more, something that the employees might want, because, part of it is also giving a choice. And so while it is a, maybe an opportunity for savings, it's all, even if we broke even, but we gave people a choice where they might save more, that also would be, a win, I think, for the district.
Yeah, I agree. And we will give you those examples of savings. And I think if you get, I don't know if everybody gets a copy of this presentation, but if you go back to that slide 10, that was what we were trying to illustrate there. And that's why we thought, Teresa, to your point, there are ways we can enhance the benefit, which certainly you could do to try to incentivize people. There are many different ways we can skin this cat, but we thought that the contributions might make more sense. And again, we just used 500 and 1,000, but under what Mr. Carey just explained, if you had, for example, that 1% migration, if you're saving $18,000, you're only giving 3 of it up in that example. If you incentivize with higher contributions to the what we call seed money to their HSA, I think you'll have more people participating. And that was what we thought that the HSA contribution was the more attractive than just looking at or trying to find ways to tweak the benefit structure itself.
Yeah, I'm sure there's 100 ways to go about balancing in this prescription, that prescription, but for simplicity's sake, if we just split the difference or split the savings between the employee and the district, everybody wins. And then I don't know if that makes it attractive enough for people to want to have an HSA, but that's the information that I'd like to see.
Yeah.
So, Teresa, one thing one thing I want to point out is that we did not show any board contributions to the insurance committee prior to the board tonight.
Okay.
Because we didn't want to promise them or talk about any numbers without some board input first.
Well, and that explains why they voted 12 to.
That could explain why there was lack of interest in the actual high deductible plans. But on the other hand, to do so beforehand could have put the board in a different position that you may not have wanted to be in. So
No, I get it, but you're right. If you don't show any seed money, nobody would want it. There's no, so that's why I'm trying to split the benefits.
Yep. And this was our starting point. We certainly can go back and do some more work.
Are there any other questions we want brought back?
No.
Yes, I'd like to see those examples as well. In my view, I mean, the only thing that I saw there was potential savings if I don't get sick. And other than that, hence the comment, people may don't want to prevent people from going to the doctor just to not able to spend their money. I mean, that's just defeats the purpose.
Although we can't be responsible for how people choose to save their money. I mean, you would hope that people wouldn't put their health at risk just to save a buck, and I think most people wouldn't, but I mean, if they choose to do that, I don't know that we should not offer the option of a plan because one or two people might choose that. I don't know.
I think that person's going to make an irrational decision regardless of which plan. If you're going to,
And I was talking about what was just presented to us without putting in any balances there of what we pay and what we subsidize, if you will, and to get it closer and more but an incentive for someone to jump on board in this.
Yeah, and those are all great points, and I understand exactly where everyone's come from. Just so that you can understand, we were not at liberty to spend the board's money here. We were trying to illustrate. We were trying to illustrate what we expect the savings to be. If you want to try to share those savings, I think that's wise. But we weren't really at liberty to, and that's why this was a starting point and a important that we share this with the board so that we can create a plan that works for the board and works for the district.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be great because I do think we're kind of our goal is definitely something mutually beneficial and just options for people. Why not consider it? Or any other takeaways we want for now?
Julianne, I don't know if you're going to reiterate what you said at the beginning. And basically what I mean by that is how much time, how many other opportunities to tweak this do we have?
Thank you. Currently, we have two, one on May 27th and one on June 29th. If we needed to, we could go into July, but it'd be better if we didn't. We start the plan year July 1, and so premiums are actually for the PPO taken out in June for that. But regardless this year of who does what, all employees will be on the PPO until December. So if they choose to go to the HSA, they'll do that during open enrollment in October with a January 1 start date. And then we'll start taking out their HSA or their high deductible premiums in December in preparation for January. I hope that we can come back together in the fall at some point, because I do believe that the education for this will be important to be, and it would be just easier to do in person. But if not, we will figure out a way to do it like we're doing now, or we could have small groups of people and things like that to learn about the plan if the board chooses to implement one.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for coming and presenting.
Thank you, Stephen and Deb. Have a good night.
Thank you
Deb.
for having us. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Yep, a couple updates. It seems strange to share because we have not had the opportunity to have many of our end of the year activities and celebrations and events, but between now and our next board meeting, we'll have our last day of school. So May 20th is indeed our last day of school. And to prepare for the last day of school, we do have supply pickup. Seniors came in at the end of last week that seniors probably that weren't taking AP tests or don't plan to take those. Some of those seniors still have their books and they haven't turned in any of their supplies or picked up materials. So over the next week or the next 4 or 5 days and into the beginning of next week, we will have supply pickup. So we have communicated and in the process of communicating to our parents what that is going to look like on the dates and the grade spans to make sure we are practicing social distancing and effectiveness and efficiency of supply pickup and what we do with extra materials and communicating that information. So 5/20 is our last day of school. Supply pickups started last weekend, will continue this week. Another piece, this is a hard one to define because I know as this year kind of comes to a close, there's already a number of people that are asking about next fall. And we have a series of options we're looking at and working on for next fall. So just so that you know, we are trying to balance the governor's stay-at-home order with the ISBE along with the Illinois Department of Public Health. So just one of those alone would make it a challenge in which to do so. But if you throw 3 in, and sometimes the 3 of those don't always mesh and match perfectly. So just know that we are working on those. And as soon as we start finalizing that, we will get that information out. As you know, the state board has recommended summer schools to be fully online. So we will have an online summer school for this summer. And that information, I believe, is going out first thing tomorrow, just to reiterate that to our parents and our community members, and that starts in June. Then the last note that I do have is on the 21st of May, our foundation is meeting again. The Kaneland Foundation is meeting again virtually as we continue to look at the engagement activities and program through the Marquette Hamlin Group, the vendor that the foundation selected to lead us through shifting and adjusting the foundation as needed to be more viable. We are excited that the foundation has selected to approve grants again. So at that meeting on the 21st, we will be looking at teacher grants for students, and we'll be able to share those with the board at a follow-up meeting probably in June. So those are the updates that I have, and I didn't know if Dr. Fuchs, if you had any, or President Sparber.
I do not.
Nope. All right.
Thank you.
So we had, so now we'll move on to topics for future agendas. Any topics?
I think you might have just already said it, but I guess I don't have any confidence that the governor will let us start school in the fall. So I'd like to see some sort of more detailed plan as to how we're going to approach it, because I know we got thrown to the wolves this time around, but it seems like we should have a better plan of.
Ryan, I can only hear half of your thing.
All right.
Could everybody else mute?
Yeah, Ryan, you were breaking up.
Yeah.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I don't think the governor's going to let the kids go back to school in the fall, or if he does, it's only going to be for a couple weeks before he pulls the plug again. So I think you were already talking about that, Todd, but I'd like to see a much more detailed plan on how we're going to approach it. I know you didn't have that opportunity. Everyone was caught off guard, but there's definitely been some bugs that I've seen on my end as a parent. And I'd like a better idea how the administration is going to approach it if we have to go that route.
So I guess, Todd, is that already a topic that you're bringing? Or is that a thumbs up, thumbs down? Or since you now co-created this?
I think we are bringing that. We are working on that. We will communicate that. So I think while I think Ryan is reiterating the importance of it. So I don't think it's new. I think Ryan's just seconding that unofficial motion.
Okay.
Okay. Any other topics for future agendas?
Can I add to that, Brian? So Brian, so you were asking. I was trying to concentrate on trying to fix your voices and stuff, but you're basically saying if we continue this at the beginning of the next year, is that what you're basically asking? Now, okay, following on that, Todd, is that something that's dictated to us how we do it anyway?
What we've asked for, what we've tried to clearly ask for, what are the parameters for education, whether it's seniors, credits, hours, those things from the state board, and then what are the parameters from the Illinois Department of Public Health? And if they can clearly lay out the parameters for us, then we can create the education system that best meets our students' needs in those parameters. So we do have some freedom, hopefully, within what the direction that we receive from the state board and also from the Illinois Department of Public Health. And I'm sure you've seen and read about these, but there's a myriad of options of, do you do A days and B days? Do the younger students come in more often than older students? Because older students should be able to remote learn better than first and second graders. How do you handle transportation of putting 50 students on a bus when you're supposed to be socially distancing? So there's a number of those factors that as the stay-at-home order relaxes, then generally the Illinois Department of Public Health follows up with more information. So as there's more guidance, there's more direction, and then the state board usually chimes in also. So we're going to do as much as we can, as often as we can, within our limits to get students on campus with their teachers. We have seen and experienced, to reiterate Ryan's comment, experiences that we've learned and grown from, but there is at this point, when at all possible, not a substitute for students in classes. So we'll make every effort to do that as much as we can.
Todd, could that information also include what is our ability to regulate how the teachers teach online? Like, I know a lot of times there's a hands-off approach as to, teachers are free to teach in the best way they find possible, but parents are expressing a lot of frustration with the fact that nothing is cohesive. There's not really one place for information, one type of plan. Some teachers are taking it really seriously, other teachers are not. I guess I'm wondering, what is our ability to require certain levels of participation, certain product use, and compelling teachers to do things in a certain way so that it's more cohesive and everybody gets the same level of teaching quality, for lack of a better term.
Okay. We do have, those are great questions, Teresa, and I've noted those. The district does have a lot of latitude in which we can have expectations for lessons, usage of Canvas. As you know, we're in the midst of rolling out Canvas this year. So for next year, there should be more teachers using it and more consistency with that. And then also standard best teaching practices, hopefully with a survey that we just sent to teachers to ask them what they need to be more successful. We'll get that back. And then on the 15th, we'll be sending out with our weekly update to parents, a survey for parents of how their experiences went. And I think some of the things that you and Ryan have reiterated, we'll hear some of that too. But then some of the other things that we've championed, we can take some of those best practices and make sure we let other staff members know what went well and what went well for students, so we can make sure we teach that to other teachers over the summer too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other topics?
I'm assuming fall sports is all kind of just rolls into that.
Yeah, that under the ISBE, the Illinois High School, the IHSA, the Illinois High School Association, they will give us that direction. As you saw in the spring, they gave us the direction that we're still under right now, that there are no state championships, no state tournaments, no state regionals or sectionals. But at some point, if the stay-at-home order is relaxed, spring sports can still play. But I think the further we get into summer, the less likely that's going to happen as seniors and juniors start to go get their jobs and they move on with other things in their life. So while it's still hopeful that can still potentially happen, it's probably less and less likely the further we get into summer. But the state will give us the mandates on if we can have sports, if we can have activities, what the audience participation will be. Will fans be able to come in and watch? Which sports might we have and not have? That's, again, where and what we can have that's safe and that follows the ISBE guidelines. We will do as many as we can to try to make it as normal, as productive of a school year as possible.
Great. Any other topics? No. Okay. And we have no more public comment. So we do have closed session tonight. The Board of Education is scheduled for a closed session where there will be no action taken following the session. If we're following the vote to go into closed session, the recording of tonight's meeting will be concluded. So is there a motion to go into closed session for Illinois School Code 122C1?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Mr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Rivas,
Aye.
Mrs.
He said aye.
Aye. Yeah, aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. So we'll go into closed session. Thank you.